Hey, welcome back, treasure hunters. So today I'm going to be going over some different types of prints you might see out at thrift stores. When I first started thrifting, I know I had a difficult time telling apart from, whether something was a more modern print that didn't have much resale value compared to, lithographs or other types of printing techniques that actually do hold good resale value. Hopefully these tips and tricks will help you be able to identify those more valuable pieces out when you're treasure hunting so you can flip them for a profit. So there are actually a lot of different printing techniques that artists have used throughout the years. I'm just going to be going over some of the more common ones that you might see out of thrift stores. But first, the main thing that I look for when I am looking through art is obviously the original artwork, but also when I'm coming across prints, I said this before, you always want to look at the frame and the back of the piece. But beyond that, how do you tell what type of print it is or if it holds any value? So the first thing I look for when I find a print is it hand signed and does it have a number? This is often at the bottom, underneath the actual artwork. So in a lot of artistic prints, the artist will actually sign the piece of art on the plate itself. So it will be part of the art, but then they will sign it underneath, often in pencil. So this is one thing I always look for. And usually on the left side is where you'll see the number, where the top number, the numerator, is that print's actual number, and the bottom number is how many of those prints were made. So a lower bottom number means the piece is more rare. Sometimes you also may find that instead of a number, you'll see AP, which stands for artist proof. And those actually can be even more valuable than one of the main runs of that piece of art. So that's the first thing I look for. Now, there are different types of prints that you're not going to see those numbers. These numbers and signed in pencil are usually on serigraphs, lithographs, sometimes on etchings, and they can be on different types of relief prints also, but you may not see those on woodblock prints or, certain types of art. So it's always a good idea to do a little more investigating. But when you do see that signature in pencil and the number, it's always a good idea to try and uncover who the artist might be, just doing a quick search. If you can't read it, then that's when you kind of have to judge how much does it cost and how well is it framed. Did it come from a gallery? Is there a gallery sticker? Is there any kind of indication on the back, like a certificate of authenticity or any other thing on the back that might indicate that it has value? If you don't see any of this stuff, you can't decipher the artist's signature, then it comes down to, does the art look like something that you could resell? Is it a nice piece of art? Is the price worth taking a chance at uncovering the artist later on? Also, remember to keep in mind the size of the piece, because if you are selling it online and you need to ship it, obviously the larger the piece is, the more expensive the shipping is going to be. So that's either going to need to be configured into your price because buyers aren't going to want to pay, a couple $100s for shipping. And if you're offering free shipping, then you have to also take that into consideration when you're pricing your item. So those are all things that I think of when I come across those different types of prints. Now I'm going to get into some of the actual types of prints you might see and different basic tricks that might tell one print from another. So the first category of prints that I'm going to talk about are relief prints. And relief prints are when the printing plate, pieces of the printing plate are actually removed and then ink is applied to that raised surface. Under magnification, especially if the piece has lettering or anything in there, you can actually look, and if you look closely, the outer edge of those letters or even outer edge of other pieces within the artwork will actually be darker because of that ink being pressed outwards. type of relief print that you might see out is a woodcut print. And these are more primitive or crude looking. They actually do look like a piece of wood that was carved into, whatever the artwork is. And this is an example of a woodcut print. You can see that there's not a lot of fine details to it, and it is obviously more primitive looking. Similar to that are linocut prints, which are similar to woodcut prints, but linoleum is used instead of wood. And these were popularized in the 50s by artists like Picasso. And these were actually, linoleum was used because it was easy to carve and easier than some of the wood that was used. So more details could be added and it was just easier to use. One other type that isn't super common is a wood engraving. And this is actually how pictures were printed in magazines and newspapers back, in the late 1800s. It allows for finer, more detailed lines and creates, a more realistic picture. So these types of relief prints are older. It's an older printing technique. And even though, you might find some that are a little more modern, they're still going to be vintage and they're not super common out of the thrift stores. That way you can at least, when you see something like this, you can identify it as a woodcut or a wood engraving or whatever it might be. Now, just because it is a relief print doesn't mean that it's going to hold a ton of value. It still really depends on the artist. I've seen some wood engravings that I haven't even purchased just because the, resale value just isn't there. So the next category of prints is Intelio Prints. It's actually spelled it looks like Intelio Prints. And these are very similar to relief cut prints, but instead of the ink being applied to the raised surface of the removed surface of this printing plate, it's actually applied to the crevices that are made. Now, one good way to tell this type of print is you'll be able to see, like here, there is an actual line around the outside, which is the actual printing plate. That's a really good way to tell if it is an etching or an engraving, is you'll see that pressed line around the actual piece of art. And also, sometimes the ink can actually be raised up a bit on the paper, but this can be kind of difficult to tell if it's in a frame and you're in the thrift store and everything else. So the first type of Intelio prints are etchings, which this is where the artist actually draws on the printing plate and acid creates the grooves within the steel. And there's a whole complicated process in this, and I'm not going to go through exactly how it was made. But with etchings, compared to engravings, etchings have more freely drawn lines. Common etchings you might see like out at auction would be by Louis Eichardt, would be one where you can see here. This is more of an etching, and oftentimes these etchings are later hand colored or using watercolors or whatever type of medium. And the next type is engraving, which a good example of this would be like the US $1 bill. Here you can see they're usually engravings are made up of parallel lines and curves and sometimes cross-hatched lines, but they're much more uniform. They might be denser to create like darker portions or, obviously wider or lighter spots. Some other types of Intelio prints include dry point etchings, mezzotints, aquatints, and I'm not even exactly sure how to tell the difference between like a mezzotint versus an aquatint. I would have to look and actually research that and, look back and forth and whatever else. So it's just more about being able to tell etchings and engravings when you're out at the thrift stores. And oftentimes these are also numbered, and similar to what we talked about before, the lithographs, and they're numbered and signed in pencil down at the bottom. So the most common types of prints that you'll see out, if you do see something that's hand signed and numbered, are lithographs. And, these have varied also, as time has gone on with technology and, just the printing industry, I guess. So with lithographs, the older lithographs were, handmade and hand colored and everything. Oftentimes you'll see, lithographs made by like Currier and Ives or different larger companies. And then there are different engravers and everything that will do work after, the artist. And all of this will be displayed down at the bottom of some of these very old lithographs. So with older lithographs under magnification, you'll see the ink dots are more irregular and have dark rims around the edges of those dots. And sometimes it can actually resemble a watercolor painting. Another thing you can look for is it's common to see overlapping or off registration colors where the different colors actually, instead of being completely uniform, matching right up, butt to butt against each other, they're actually, overlapped a bit. Another type of print that you might see out at the thrift stores is a screen print. So screen prints were popularized by artists like Lichtenstein or Andy Warhol or Salvador Dali. They're often, kind of like pop art with bright colors, designs, and not as detailed as photographs. And if you look at these under magnification, you can actually sort of see a mesh pattern. And these can also be numbered and signed similar like we talked about before. Now there's also modern halftone prints, which you'll see that, they do look more modern. And these you can see here, they have more of a uniform dot pattern, but the colors of the dots can actually help you age the piece. So prior to around 1950, red was used. So if you see little red dots, most likely that is a print that is, prior to 1950, where they switched and started using magenta after that. So if you see magenta being used, then it's probably more of a late mid-century to more, modern piece. And then the final prints that you'll see out are, the modern day digital prints. And these under magnification, you can actually see, just because they are printed by laser, you can actually see it looks dusty around the edges, I guess. And here's an example where you can actually see just tiny little color that you wouldn't be able to see with the naked eye, but under magnification, you can kind of see that little dusty ink pattern. So I didn't want to go into too much strict detail on all the different history of these prints and stuff, but these are the most common types of prints that I see out at the thrift stores. And just these little nuances between prints can help you identify and research and kind of value things before you buy and also after you have already purchased the piece. Now, obviously, magnification, like all of that stuff, it's going to be real difficult doing that inside the thrift store. But when you're at home, if you found a piece that you think is a really nice piece of art, it's nicely framed, and you think there could be some value or resale value in it, then you can look further and it'll help you when you're searching, whether, you're searching for a serigraph, a lithograph, a screen print, or an engraving. Using those words in the searches can also help you uncover who the artist is. So before I let you go, there are a couple tools that can be helpful. The first one, which you can take out of the thrift stores, are jeweler's eyes. I got a set of these on Amazon, and they were very inexpensive, and they actually came with different magnifications. So this is like a 7x, this is 10x. I think these are the two of the stronger ones. I think it also came with like 5, 3 and 2 or something, but they were real cheap, under $20. I think they were only like $7 or $8 for all 5. Not super quality or anything, but they do the job. Then the next thing that I recommend is a black light or a UV light. So it looks like a flashlight, but you can see, hopefully, I don't know if that's going to come up on camera or not, but you can see the purple UV light. And what this does is it helps when you're looking at a print and you're trying to figure out, is it a more modern print or is it, more of a vintage or antique, is shining the black light they recently, printing places recently started putting in, I forget what it's even called, but it makes it brighter. So it's like a brightening agent or something. So when you shine the black light on a more modern print, it'll actually glow a bit, kind of reflect or glow back that black light, whereas the older prints aren't going to do that. I also use this too if, there's a signature that I cannot, it's kind of meshed. Like if I use this on, you can also use this on paintings to see what kind of material was used or the paper that was used for a painting. So if it doesn't reflect the light, then it's an older painting or whatever. But I also use this if on the painting itself, the signature is kind of within the piece and it's hard to make out like what is the actual signature compared to what is a piece of the painting. Sometimes using the black light at an angle can help me decipher, okay, well, this is a letter instead of like a leaf or, whatever part of the painting it is. The last tool here, and this will obviously help with the magnification. I picked this up on Amazon for like $15 or something. It's just a digital microscope and it plugs, this one actually, you plug it right into your computer to charge it. And this is wireless. So I turn this thing on, it's got a light and this one goes from 50x to 1000x. Just twist it like that to focus it. I actually connect with this right on my phone. So I just look, under on my Wi-Fi settings, you connect right with this. There's an app you download and it shows the image right on my phone as I'm looking at it. So this can be super helpful and easy to use instead of having to like bend over and look through like a, little eyepiece on the actual microscope. I can just hold my phone and look over the different pieces of the artwork. So, and this gets down, you can see exactly all the examples I showed you before. You can see all of that with something like this. So this is really helpful. And there's a whole different, there's more expensive ones and, that do a lot more. And then there's even cheaper ones that like cheap is like $8 or something. But I don't know if those actually will show the image on your phone or whatever. For only like $15 or whatever it was, this is a really cool, helpful buy to do some research. So I hope that wasn't too much info for you, but I do hope it was really helpful. Even if, you caught a couple things here and there, it takes some time to get used to when you're out searching for artwork. All the time, the most important thing I always look at is, the frame, how it's framed, and the back of the artwork itself, and then kind of go from there. Stay away from things with barcode stickers on the back or, anything that was probably sold in some kind of, department store. And always look for those hand-signed, hand-numbered pieces and see if you can uncover who the artist is. So as always, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you found anything in the video that was helpful, please hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. And if you haven't done so yet and you like the content and want to see more, hit that subscribe button for me. My goal is to try to get to 1,000 followers in somewhat of a short time. So I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos. And if you think anybody treasure hunts or likes this kind of stuff, please share the channel with them. It'll really help me out and I really appreciate it. Next video, got a ton more treasures. I think I'm going to do my next video as, did I find it at the thrift store or did I get it at an estate sale? Because I have a whole bunch of both. And I don't know, I like to mix it up a bit. So I think that should be pretty cool. So I'll be working on that next. If you have any other questions or tips and tricks, I did get a couple requests on shipping. So I can definitely do another shipping video, shipping everything from, artwork to glass to whatever, but I'll put that together also. So anyway, thanks again for watching. And if you do get out there, as always, good luck out there treasure hunting.